Joe Morrissey. He's with us. Joe, good to have you with us, man.
John, always a pleasure. Great to be here.
Joe, we got a mayor's race November 8th. I predicted early on you were going to get elected. You were going to win. I think you're going to win in the first ballot. One of your competitors in this race, Jack Perry, who, by the way, I had lunch yesterday, ran into former Governor Wilder, and we were talking about this a little bit, and he said you're going to be tough in this race. I tweeted a picture of him out after we had lunch. And we happen to be right in front of Jack Perry's office, so that's why I'm kind of bringing this up. But over the weekend, it came out that as far as the Jack Perry campaign, there's been emails about the baseball stadium that didn't exactly match what he said, so there's a disconnect there. What's up?
Here's what happened. For the last 7 months, Jack has been taking a very strident position saying, I'm against these big, shiny projects. The baseball stadium, the Redskins, this and that. And he said over and over again, let's get back to basics. And very dismissive of Jones and those shiny projects. However, the RTD did a FOIA request of all of his emails, and it turned out that, as they reported, Jack was the biggest cheerleader for the baseball stadium. He was the one that was pushing it. But far more egregious, in the emails, he said, listen, I will ghost author quotes from black people, and we will then try to show that they are in favor of this stadium. And then he went further and he said that we got to separate the community into small groups so there can't be a united action against the baseball stadium. And then he was very dismissive of the RTD, and he said we got to give them a ration of SHIT. And it was completely the antithesis of what he's been saying for the last 6 or 7 months. And he's not a get back to basics. He was a big, shiny guy. And let me tell you the problem. 4 years ago, I sent a letter to Dolores McQuinn, my colleague in the House. They said, what are you thinking? You can't put this stadium down on the bottom. First of all, it's a swamp. No ingress or egress. Second, where's the money coming from? We would have had to borrow $80 million for that stadium, and we only have $5 million, John, in borrowing capacity left. So it would have been a disaster, and Jack's got to respond to that. He's got to explain to the public, why have you been saying for months, no baseball, I'm against it, it's wrong, but your email showed an entirely different thing.
Well, I think it's pretty easy, Joe. Politics as usual. This is the way the game is played. You say one thing, you do another.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
I mean, that's the problem with the entire corrupt political system right now. So, and I'm not saying that this is the case in Jack's case, and maybe he did have a change of heart. Certainly from those emails, that would be a rather dubious conclusion to draw, I think. But look, you got the developers that want the stadium. Millions of dollars are going to get pumped in. They're the ones that fund these campaigns. So it's like, you take the money from the developers that want the stadium, but then you do your behind-the-scenes thing to get it done, but then publicly you say, oh, no, I'm opposed to it. So I guess he was for it before he was against it, before he was for it.
Yeah, you just hit the nail on the head.
Here's
what's happening. The developers want that baseball stadium in the bottom. Why? And I'm not going to mention any names. They bought up all the contiguous property around there. They stand to become, what's your word, gazillion heirs.
Gazillionaires.
There you go. Now, so they support the politicians get on board, and guess who gets screwed at the end? The taxpayers.
Bingo.
We're putting, imagine this, $80 million into a stadium that's general revenue bonds, guaranteed by the city, redeemable at taxpayer expense, and every major sporting project where a municipality funds it ends up holding the bag. And that's the bad part about it. And take our Redskins stadium. Jack's for that too. We put $10 million city money into that stadium. What did we get out of it? We got out of the right to pay him another $500,000 a year. We're already $4 million behind in our payments. We end up holding the bag, and the taxpayers always get screwed. Developers, not so much.
So, Joe, the argument for the baseball stadium at the bottom is, look, short-term pain, long-term gains, going to bring economic development to the area. The Squirrels need a new baseball stadium. They're saying they can't survive in the one they're in. They don't want to lose the team. And so it's always like, you make the investment now and then it's going to pay off, because You get other development around it, and then there'll be a bigger tax base, and everybody wins. Why is that not the case?
Okay, here's the problem. When a municipality gets into a function that is normally the private sector, they lose. Consider Richmond. We built the 6th Street Marketplace, okay? Richmond, that went belly up. Main Street Station, belly up. Government, local municipal governments need to fix potholes, clear alleys, pay your first responders, fix your schools, not get into the development of projects. Now, there's nothing wrong with a small private public sector project, but not here. There was a report I read a little while ago. There was about 90 sports complexes that were built around the country in the last 10 years, 15 years with municipal dollars. Over 90% of them went south. That's what happens. So you just don't do that, John. You let the private sector handle it. You engage with them. You work with them. The squirrels are going to stay right there where they are on the diamond, on the boulevard where they've been for 50 years. We're going to help them renovate the stadium. We're going to develop projects around there, but that's where they're going to stay. And you know what? I'm not going to spend $200,000 on a report that says, yeah, that's what the people want. I can walk down East Brooklyn Park Boulevard and take 100 people's statements, and they'll say, yeah, that's what we want. I'm not going to spend $200,000 to do that.
So $200,000 you would spend in order to talk about doing a study after a study has been done.
Yeah, that's what they did. The Umbeck report. The city spent $200,000. They called it a community engagement session. And at the end, they go, oh, the people want to keep it right there. Really? How about just come to me? I've walked up and down those streets for a month. Ask me what 99% of the people will say. They'll say, keep it right there. You don't have to pay me $200,000, pay me $2. And I'll give you the same report. Another waste of money. They opened Huguenot High School in Richmond. Great. Right. Spent $50,000 on the ribbon cutting ceremony, dispensing water. Oh, come on. You know, it's the people on the inside that get wealthy because of who they know, and that's not going to happen with me.
The taxpayers get screwed at the end of the day.
Every time.
Over and over and over.
Exactly.
With no abatement. Let's get to the Redskins now. A lot of people excited about it. They think, the Redskins should their training facility should come to Richmond. There's a lot of emotion that goes behind it. But again, this is something the governor is in favor of. I guess he thinks it's a good thing. He thinks, again, it'll bring development money. At the end of the day, you'll get a higher tax revenue base than you're going to spend the money. But you look at it on paper, the numbers don't really add up. As Bobby Scott would say, you got to be able to do arithmetic.
Right. You just said the most important thing of this little segment, the numbers don't add up. Let me just share with you facts. The Redskins are a $2.35 billion company. They're the second richest team in the NFL. Now, the NFL just got a new TV contract, added about $1/3 billion to most teams. Okay. So they need to expand the Skins, their TV market. All right? They can't go north because that's in the Baltimore Ravens country. They can't go east because then they're into the Atlantic Ocean. Can't go west. They needed to come south. They needed Central Virginia, the Richmond market. They needed that stadium that they play in for 3 weeks in the summertime down here in Richmond. They needed us. But what did we do? We said, because some folks were awed because it's the Washington Redskins, and they said, we will give you $14 million, and the city put up $10 million through our EDA. Now, where was that money going to come from? Oh, we were going to rent out the second floor and do sponsorships. None of those two things took place yet. Also, they said, oh, we're going to build a new nursing college at the old Patterson High School, and we're going to build a new $6 million medical building at the community hospital. 4 years ago, not a shovel of dirt has been turned. We got screwed again. And why is the city of Richmond putting up $10 million for that project? But we can't keep some of our schools open. We got potholes that are 6 inches deep. That's why they got to come to you.
That's right.
to fix the tires. The trees aren't trimmed. The alleys aren't cleaned. The crush and run isn't put down in the alleys. We're not paying our first responders. Why? Add up these monies. You're a mathematician. You ready? You got your calendar there. You got your calculator there. $14 million for the Redskins Stadium. $80 million for the baseball stadium. $33 million for a brewery. Really? And that's city money. Not going to happen with me.
So you're just not going to let any of these, I guess, crony capitalism, private equity partnership deals, you're just not going to let them happen because the taxpayers are ultimately on the hook. I think you laid it out, Joe. The ones that benefit from these are the developers, like you said, that buy the land around it, but then they fund the campaigns of the politicians that send emails and back it, but then say they're going to do something else.
Sure. I mean, you just look at the politicians, the developers who have funded Barry and Stoney. Stoney was all in for the brewery, all in for the Redskins Stadium. He supported McAuliffe in the baseball stadium. Look where the money's going. It's going to them. They're not giving me the money. It's funny, John. My competitors have spent 9 months raising money. Do you know how many fundraisers I've had?
None.
0. You know how many fundraising letter requests that I've sent out?
None.
None, exactly. But I'm leading the race by 18 points. It's funny. They say, well, Joe, I just speak the truth. They said that Harry Truman. They said they accused him of giving hell to everybody, and he said, I don't do that. I just tell the truth, and I make their life hell. That's what I'm doing. I am telling the truth as to how these developers are sponsoring these politicians like Barry, like Stoney, and then they expect a return on their investment. And that's what is frightening to some of those folk in Richmond. I just tell the truth, and I'm leading the polls by 18 points because I'm not in bed with anybody. And the city of Richmond will get a mayor who is a businessman, who will run that city like a business and is not beholden to special interests.
Joe, the bottom line is, though, what you just said is that you're not beholden to anybody, none of these developers, none of these special interests, none of the big donors, the bundlers. I mean, you're simply not beholden. And, you look at the money in this race for Richmond, and LeVar Stoney, one of your opponents, has raised a stunning amount of money. What? $1 million or something.
Closing in on it.
Closing in $1 million for the mayor of Richmond, highest ever. And you look at where the money has come from, and you have to ask yourself, I think that it's a good thing that you can raise money, obviously, because you got to be competitive, and he's shown that. But I look at the number, it's staggering, and I say to myself, the people that are giving this, they're just not doing it because they think, well, his father went to jail and he'd be a good mayor. They're doing it because they have a vested interest in something. And you got to figure that if Stoney were to win, he's got a lot of favors to give back. A lot of people are going to be lined up in his office, and they've given him a lot of money. And I'm not sure that he can make decisions that are going to be completely free of that. Who could?
Yeah.
Who could?
Let's just, again, look at the salient facts. Most of his money is coming from out of city of Richmond, people who have gotten patronage positions from his boss, McAuliffe. They have no interest in Richmond, but because he dispensed patronage, now they're giving money. Now, then you talk about the developers that are giving money. They're going to come at the end. They're going to say, have the hands out. This is what I want. And that's why we're in trouble right now in Richmond. We're not as bad as Petersburg, but we're heading that way. We have $5 million in borrowing capacity over the next 6 years, Richmond. Can you imagine?
That's not a lot of money.
No, it's not. Barry, how do you run a bit? What if we had started to build that stadium on the bottom? We needed $80 million. We would have had to borrow it. Our bond rating would have tanked. God forbid if it went over budget, and wouldn't have been out of the question. Where would we be? We would be looking up at Petersburg as a beacon of virtue as far as fiscal acumen. That's the problem, and I'm not going to do that. With LeVar Stoney and with Barry, they owe other people. I don't. You might not like some things about Joe, and I've never claimed to be perfect, but I know how to run a business. I'm a technocrat. I'm very disciplined, and I am going to run this city like it should be, like a business.
Why are you worried about, having said that, Why are you worried about taking down statues?
Yeah, good question. I think I'm and what you're talking about, John, is my statement 2 days ago. Let's remove Jefferson Davis statue. Let's be clear. I think I'm the only history teacher that's running for mayor right now.
Yes.
Okay. I revere history. You never cover it up. You never put it under the carpet. You never forget it. And I said at the beginning, number one, the generals on Monument Avenue that fought for Virginia, wore the Virginia cloth, were born in Virginia, they stay. But Jefferson Davis statue is a monument to a politician who championed a cause, slavery, that is anathema to many Americans, many Virginians, particularly black people. It's hurtful. It's painful. So I suggested that what we do is we remove it, not destroy it, remove that monument to slavery. And you know what? I think I've started a conversation, and I'm hoping it will continue. People ask me, are you going to do it automatically? Of course not. Anything that you do as a public official, you get the approval of your legislative body, city council, and you only do it after the community weighs in. And, you know, maybe I'm wrong. Barry could be wrong on this. Maybe they want it there, and then their voice controls.
Jeff Davis, I mean, there was a lot more that went into the Confederacy than the slavery issue. There was states' rights and things like that. But the bottom line is, I mean, Jeff Davis was the president of the Confederacy in Richmond. He is a historical figure. The statue's been there forever. I mean, we spent 20 minutes talking about all the problems that Richmond has and that you're focused on: education, getting rid of the crony capitalism, giving money back to the taxpayers, doing the right thing, only $5 million in debt. And now we're involved in a debate about taking a statue down that's been there since 1880, I think. Who cares?
Yeah. Well, that's the last point is the, again, you're very prescient and you hit the nail on the head. Who cares? That's what we're going to discuss. Who cares? And I think that there are thousands and thousands of Richmonders who do care. Now, not to say that my perspective is the correct one, the accurate one, but let's start that discussion. And remember, Jefferson Davis, who, again, I'm a student of history, born in Kentucky, died in New Orleans, was a revered senator from Mississippi, and that statue may belong there, may belong in another part of Virginia, but on iconic Monument Avenue, where it's a testament to the institution of slavery, I think not. But you know what? I might be wrong. So let's start that discussion after I become mayor and see what people feel, how they feel.
Well, he also spent 36 months in a federal prison in Hampton at Fort Monroe. So, you know, he also spent time in a United States federal prison for what they thought at the time were crimes against the United States. So I see where you're coming from on that. When are you going to have a fundraiser?
You know, I don't have time. I swear to God, I don't have time.
Are you going to have enough money in this race to be competitive?
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. We will be on radio, we'll be on TV. But one thing I don't do, I've never gone negative against any opponent, have no intention of starting now. And let me say this. Folks out there that are listening, look to the first candidate who goes negative. That's the candidate that's hemorrhaging. That's the candidate that's in third place and is desperate. And nothing else has worked, so they're going negative. Just be on the watch out for that. The other thing is, for 9 months, I mean, John, I campaign every day from 4 o'clock, 4:30 until 8:30, a little bit less because it's getting dark now. All day on Saturday and Sunday. I practice law. I've got 3 little babies at home. I've got a new wife. My life is slammed. I don't have time to hold a meet and greet, raise money at a coffee. I just don't. The money that I've raised, people have sent in, and it's going to be enough to get me through.
Joe Morrissey, leading candidate for mayor, RVA. He's going to win. This is the John Fredericks Radio Network.